Welcome to the Bleep Bulimia podcast with guest Tammy Doering, the Fight Aging Now coach. Hi everyone, I am Lorianne. I am the host of Bleep Bulimia, and today I'm very pleased to have Tammy Doering, and she is the Fight Aging Now coach. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you so much for having me, Miss Laurie, and I appreciate it. Excited and nervous too.
Oh, I know. And believe it or not, even as a host, I still get nervous when I have guests on.
It never ends. It's a good thing. It means that we have a spirit of excellence.
Absolutely. Well said. So I want to start with asking you, can you give us a little bit of a background about you and why was it important for you to reach out on this podcast?
Well, some background on me is I live in Anniston, Alabama, and I grew up here since the age of 5. So I have been in Alabama now 53 years. My family moved down from Michigan, and I grew up in the South with the wonderfulness of yes ma'ams and no ma'ams and yes sirs and no sirs, and it has just been it's been an amazing ride for my life. When I got to about the age of 18, started really looking at boys because I was a tomboy. I was always a very heavy girl. My mom put me on, with counselors. I remember at the age of 9 writing down everything I was eating and turning that into a counselor once a week and having to do exercise and doing all these unusual things that a 9-year-old, shouldn't do. But I was very heavy and I didn't like it. And so my mom was trying to help me. And I would literally have to, when I was a little girl, they'd have to lock my bedroom door from the outside because I would get up in the middle of the night and crawl up on the counter and get up on top of the refrigerator where I knew they were hiding the candy. And so you can imagine a 3-year-old falling off of a refrigerator, and they didn't know what on earth to do. And so that's what they would do is they had a lock on the outside of the door. So I would not get up in the middle of the night and do this stuff. So I always had a battle with eating things I wasn't supposed to eat, eating too much of the things I wasn't supposed to eat, and then just being, heavy. I battled eczema as a child. I was born with it, and they called me hamburger meat girl as a child, and it looked like raw hamburger meat on the insides of my arms and my eyelids, my neck, my thighs, sometimes on my tummy. It was a very bad nightmare, and living in Alabama with the humidity, it was even worse. So then what happened was after I was in high school, I was bigger than every girl, some of the boys even. And my maiden name is Osink, and the boys would call me Osink my battleship because of how big I was. And of course, that's quite crushing and a blow to your ego as a girl. But I'd laugh it off because what would you do? And then I'd go home and I'd binge eat, just being unhappy and miserable and not knowing how to control this creature that always wanted to eat. And so then at age 18, after I got into college, every girl there's, pencil thin. Of course, back then, you were dealing with the 70s and, the Twiggies, and the Madonna was, little tiny, and you wanted to look like them, and I'm from the 80s. I'm a big hair chick, obviously still, but I would just be so miserable with my life that sometimes I would go out and, drinking too young, have too much to drink. And then, of course, the hungry thing sets in. And one night I ate a large pizza all by myself, and it made me so sick that I got sick. And when that occurred, what happened to me was something triggered in my brain. And I can still remember that night. I was in the apartment in my dad's house, in my dad's apartment, because he and I lived together, and he worked in the day and I worked at night and went to school. And something happened where it was like, wow, I can eat a large pizza and not gain weight. And so that's when it happened. It just was this. It wasn't something I set out to do. It wasn't something that was, initiated on purpose. It wasn't, well, let's eat and vomit. It was, I got so sick. And then the relief, all of a sudden it triggered. And all of a sudden my mind began to realize, hey, you can do all that binge eating and then you can just get rid of it. And so, of course, the embarrassment of living this way it's horrible. You don't want anybody to know. I mean, nobody had a clue. Even who's been my husband for 36 years, he had no idea that I was bulimic. My family would always ask, is Tammy okay? She always goes to the bathroom after she's eaten dinner. And he's like, well, she's got IBS. I made up all these excuses. I became a master liar. It was a craft to me to come up with new ways. I would flush the toilet a lot because actually what I was doing, I knew about the issues with your teeth. And so I would always brush my teeth and rinse my mouth. And even at this age now, 28 years free from bulimia, I still have great teeth. And so the miracle of that alone it's a total miracle. Matter of fact, a couple of dentists have even said, well, you got really good teeth. And I'm like, do you see any wear and tear from being bulimic for 14 years? And they're like, you were bulimic? Most of the time that rots your teeth out. And I was like, well, I guess because of my diligence that I was able to save that. But what I really the reason I reached out is because this is a hard thing. I've never talked about this publicly, hardly at all. And I really feel that this is a ministry to save young women. It's such a debilitating, embarrassing situation to walk through, to live through silently. And if people would have known just a few things that, to see, watching how much food is being consumed every meal, how long are they in that bathroom? If they've eaten and then they've just immediately gone into the bathroom, that's usually your sign. Moms, dads, and I know we get so busy as parents. My daughter is now an adult, but I always kept an eye on this kind of stuff because I knew I lived through it. I hid this stuff for so long, and it's just like if the parents could only understand, and if the children were, I went from a size 18, and back then an 18 wasn't what an 18 is today. Back then an 18 was really a 24. Which comparable to the body expanding over the course of all these decades. So I was a very big girl, and I dropped down to a size 0.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, and I also became a aerobics instructor and a Nautilus instructor back in the day, and then I did free weights. So what I was doing was hiding those lies with exercise. So I always appeared to be exceptionally healthy. Nobody had any idea that I was living in this misery and, held captive to this nightmare. And I begged God 80 million times to save me. I didn't know who to tell. I was so embarrassed. I didn't want to tell anybody I knew close to me. I went to a couple of counselors, just to have, I used the excuse of I couldn't quit smoking because I was a heavy smoker back then. And so I used that. And then when I would get in with the counselors, I'd say, well, I'm here also for this. And so I got hypnosis and, check-ins and everything. And it helped me kick the cigarette habit, but I still lied even to them that I was okay, because I couldn't kick the bulimia habit. And so from age 18 until age 32, when I gave birth to my daughter, I was bulimic during pregnancy also. I gained somehow 26 pounds, and she was almost a 10-pound baby. But I was bulimic the entire time during that pregnancy. And it was a miracle. Number one, it didn't kill me. And number two, I didn't kill her. But nowadays, gaining 26 pounds, that's, not a bad weight gain. Back then it wasn't that much they wanted you to gain, but now, they gain a whole lot more. But I when they handed me my daughter another trigger, and it was, I never want her to see me throwing up. And I knew I had to come clean and tell somebody that loved me close enough to help me with this. I'm sorry, this is reliving this is a little difficult.
Too. This is very emotional for me too. So please.
So I sat down with my husband and I just told him, and I said, look, I don't want to die. I don't want her to ever see this. I've tried a million times to quit and I can't. I don't know how to stop. And I don't know how to eat in right proportions for, because I was so used to 14 years of eating mounds of food. And then you go and get sick, and then you go to the gym and you work out, and you go through, all of these different things to hide this nightmare. And we prayed together, and he said, okay, he said, I'm going to help you. I said, look, I have a problem when I make meals. I eat more while I'm preparing the meal than I do when I sit down at the table. And then when I sit down at the table, I'll eat a normal size. But by the time I realize how much I've actually done between preparing it and putting it on the table, I have eaten enough for 3 men. And so I would go to the bathroom right afterward and get rid of it. And so I said, I need you to understand what I'm doing. I don't know why I'm doing it. I don't know how to quit it, but I need your help. And it took us about 2 years of just working on it every single day. I literally had to learn how to eat small portions and learn how to do things in between that had nothing to do with food. I would graze all day because it didn't matter. Some days I would sometimes be in the bathroom, sometimes 6 and 7 times a day because of all the food I was consuming all the time, because I was out of control. When you've got binge eating happening on top of bulimia, it's even worse. It's a double whammy, and so that's really what occurred in my life. And when that baby was handed to me, and the realization of, this is not the role model she needs to have, I got to do something. I'd already gotten rid of all the cigarettes, and I was a 3-pack a day girl. I was a heavy drinker because I worked in the bars at night. And, you couple all of that lifestyle together with the binge eating and the garbage eating and all the other stuff. I was walking toxic person. And it's amazing how God takes your absolute mess and turns it into this amazing message, because we walk through these hard, difficult times so that we can actually turn around and give back and help somebody else that's going through it, and give them a sign that there is hope at the end of the tunnel. And it's not the freight train. It's really the hope of light. And you can come out of this, and through God, all things are possible. And sometimes he relieves things immediately, and sometimes it takes us a journey. And, it was a 2-year journey. And I just am so thankful now that, because now I've been teaching exercise class. I took back up becoming an instructor. I teach insanity exercise. I've been teaching 8 years. I took it on when I turned 50. I battle fibromyalgia and seborrheic psoriasis. I was losing my hair and going bald. I had seborrheic psoriasis up until I started working with my Dead Sea products that I make. And so, the journeys that I've been through, it's been amazing, and it's a miracle. And, that's really the reason that I reached out, because when I saw this, I was like, oh, I don't know if I can tell my story. But I've understood over the last year with COVID and everything. I joined a mastermind called Life on Fire, and they have actually taught me about the mess becoming a message and the test becoming a testimonial, and how it's my purpose in life to turn around and help somebody else. I could be just 2 steps ahead of them, right? With this one, I'm 28 years ahead of it, but I can be just 2 steps ahead of somebody else and help them come through things too. And so when I saw your podcast, when I joined that community, I was like, okay, God's told you you did this in August. Apparently he prepared you for this one, because that's when I reached out to you, because I spoke about it in my peer group, and everybody was so loving and responsive. Not you know, oh my gosh, you're taboo and you are sick and I don't want to get near you. It was more like, wow, I cannot believe you came out on the other side of this. And that is my granddaughter, and I'm so sorry. You might have to edit this out.
That's what this is all about.
I don't think so, sweetheart. I apologize. We'll get some tonight. Okay, I'm on this podcast, baby. I need you to go.
And in all fairness, if you want to take that into context, your granddaughter just walked in, and I am very emotional about the story, so you wouldn't have been there for her.
Right. Yeah. And when I look at her, I know that God had a plan, you know, and when I think about all of these parents that are oblivious and they lose their children to this stuff, and then they end up going, why didn't I see these signs? So if I stay quiet, they're not going to see the signs. They're not going to understand what to look for. They're not going to, that child's not going to become a mom and then become a grandparent, you know? And so that's one of the most important things, is to recognize the signs and ask a million questions, save their lives. Don't batter and beat them up, you know, but just say, I'm really worried about you. I don't want you to die. I love you. And a lot of times, you know, my parents divorced when I was 17. And so that might have triggered a lot of, you know, the more insecurities, you know, but being heavy my entire high school years, and not being able to be a cheerleader. You know, I remember trying out for what was called Annabelle's here at the high school, and they were like dancers, you know, where they're stagnated and, you know, or they put their arms together and do the can and all that kind of stuff. And I remember trying out, and it was me and this other girl, and she was actually bigger than me, but we were right next to one another. And then everybody else was pencil thin. So we were standing out in the group, you know, and I was just scared to death. And I remember she was sweating so profusely that she had a pile of sweat, you know, a puddle underneath her, and she lost her footing and went flat down. Well, everybody else keeps going and dancing. I quit and I reached down to help her up. And then I was told that the reason that I didn't make it was because I reached down to help her. And I remember thinking, I hope that if I ever fall like that somebody will reach down and help me pick me up. I can't imagine that it's all about you and not about helping somebody else, you know, but I can remember that because her and I were the only two big girls. And that was back in, you know, now body positive, if you're 300 pounds, you know, we didn't have that back then. If you weren't a certain size, you were out of the mold and you were nowhere fit to be dating or anything else. I always had to date guys from a different high school when I was growing up, because all the guys would not go out with me because everybody made fun of how big I was, you know. And so it's kind of ironic now. All those skinny girls are 5 times bigger than me now. It's amazing how it reverses.
And it does, because in a sense too, I think that when you get there, like in my recovery, I like a lot of the women and the young women too, because there's young women who reach out to me, and the midlife ones, because we still have 40, 50, 60-year-olds who started at 18 still bulimic after all those years. I mean, I was 30 years, 11 years ago. So I was 48, 47, 48 when I quit, right?
Yeah.
And I like to say I quit. That's a really good thing to say. However, I recovered. Whatever way you want to say it.
I say I'm free.
And free, that's a really good word. And
well, it's such a bondage.
And it is. And I keep saying, like, my freedom was, but as you said, I have to learn to understand that the food it was not the issue. It was my view on food. Bulimia was not my friend. Food is my friend because I get to sit at the table with my parents now and eat and know when I'm full. And that was all it is. I can eat whatever I want now, but know when to stop. Whereas through my bulimia, I didn't want to know when to stop. That feeling of pain is, and unlike you though, I had 3 children, never bulimic through my children. For some reason, to me, that life inside of me was more important than me, myself, and I had to take care of it. But once it left me, except for between my daughter and my youngest son, I actually didn't have bulimia. But then when my youngest son was born, I went back to it. I was more concerned about them, but then I'm thinking, what kind of mother is more concerned about them, but not concerned about herself? And as you were saying, you were brought up with very high values. So those lies that you had to tell must have caused you an amazing amount of grief because that goes against your values.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It was very, it's been very, I guess, enlightening looking back on it now, the miracle of being here.
Yeah.
And having a purpose and being able to help others. And I just want to help other women that are battling with this nightmare. Number one, to understand it isn't you, but you've got to get help because it will kill you if you don't. It's not something, because when I was dealing with this, Karen Carpenter died. And what was the other lady? Wilder was married to Gene Wilder.
Yeah.
She was on Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
She died too. And I've always in my mind was, well, that's them. That's not gonna happen to me. But that's not the case. You don't ever know. And, teenagers, especially if they, if they want to get into that dress or they want to, be part of everything, if I would have understood that in high school, I probably would have been bulimic in high school too. And who's not to say that the other girls weren't? I don't know. I didn't hang out with them.
We're close to the same generation, same thing, Karen Carpenter. But remember too, for parents back then, because my mother did find out when I was 17. She actually found out at the very onset, but then I learned to hide it. I was really good. What do you do as a parent? And then, of course, a lot of our generation growing up, it was like, well, stop it and don't do it and just stop it. And you're going, but I don't even know why it's happening, but they're afraid because they're looking at their daughter and they're going, how do I help you? And the only thing I can think of is we were brought up in disciplinary upbringing.
Yeah.
I believe you were too.
So yes.
Your parents didn't know, but my parents did. To them, I know my dad and my mom tried, but then when I wouldn't stop and they could tell I wouldn't stop, or I would, stop eating for a couple of days, which was rare because I'm not really anorexic and I can't stand not eating.
Yeah, I tried that. It didn't work.
But when I tried that, they were also concerned, but there were no manuals for them back then. Now there are. Now there are manuals to say, and I even wrote a book stating that. And I just want to say this that's really interesting, Tammy, is that one of my guests said, my husband knows about it, my mother knows about it, and she goes, there's nothing that they can say that's going to help me right now, because what you have to find out is what is the trigger. Is it because you hate your job? That can trigger it. Is it because there was something in the past that, what I'm going to have Rick Carson on Bleep Bulimia, and I hope that you can join us because it's going to be open, but he wrote How to Tame Your Gremlin. And I love that book because I think that a lot of people who struggle with bulimia have a gremlin. We just have to find it. I know I had mine, and it took me 30 years to figure out which one it was. What we want to do is find these young girls to find your gremlin. There is a trigger. As far as I'm concerned, no one can say, oh, it's just because I wanted to be slim. Because it comes to a point where you're slim and you're still doing it and you're going, well, and your relationship with food. So where is the relationship not right with somebody that you're going to food to try and make that right? And that's not even right. So I don't know if you have a message to say, did you ever find your gremlin? Did you ever find your trigger? Did you ever figure it out at all?
I feel that it was my relationship with my mother, trying to live up to standards that I could never reach. And that's not to say that that was a bad thing. It was that I didn't know how to. My sister was always the thin, beautiful one, and I was always, the bigger girl, and she was, straight A's, and I struggled with C's, and so it was an what's the word I'm looking for? I've inadequate feelings, and so I feel that that was the main reason that, because if you feel inadequate, you want something else to bring you comfort. And so food brought me that comfort. I made all kind of, I make products now. I got 120 products that my company manufactures, and I can do the same thing with food today. But because of where I was, I choose to have food as my friend, not to bring me comfort, but to bring me nutrition and to help me feel fantastic after I'm done eating instead of miserable and then, getting rid of it. Yeah, because it was a lot of poor food choices, growing up here in the South. You got fried chicken and biscuits and gravy. And my favorite things on the weekend was to go to Hardee's and get not one, but three of their biscuits with the fried steak and cheese and egg in it. And I would literally eat three of those things. And they were huge, like man would eat, but then I'd get rid of it, but that was the kind of foods. And when you're feeding your body that kind of junk, all it does is crave that kind of junk. Whatever you feed it, it wants because you've trained it. And so learning how to eat healthy, and, we actually do healthy recipes every day on our different pages on Facebook, just to help people have better alternatives to the junk that's going on out there.
Now, can I ask you this question? Because I'm with you. I eat healthy, probably 80 to 85 to 90% of the time, depending on what
Maybe unless it's a holiday, I might go off the charts a little bit, but
yeah. So like if I want a hamburger, like let's say every now and again I crave a Big Mac, I will go and get one. I don't stop myself from doing it, but it's not something I crave all the time. It's just like that odd thing. And I'm not scared of it anymore. Whereas I used to be scared that one Big Mac would end up being, oh, I'm going to order fries, and no, I'm going to order 3 Big Macs and 3 burgers, so.
Yeah, I used to do that going to Sonic.
Yeah.
I would do that and sit there in Sonic in my car.
Yeah.
So nobody would see me eating, 3 giant hamburgers and tater tots and a milkshake, and get so miserable that I could hardly get home before I was going to get sick.
Because the stomach hurts so bad.
Yeah.
And I quite often say, because it's sad thing that you're talking about the weight. My ex-husband, his sister was overweight and he was not. And so like your inadequacy thing, I can totally relate to through her, not as much through me. I have 3 sisters, and yes, I might have felt inadequate towards one or the other, but it was a different thing for me. But she was about 450 pounds.
Oh.
She was very large. And when she was a kid, I saw a picture of them when they were kids. Next to him, she was probably at 2 years old. I would probably imagine she had to have been maybe 50, 60 pounds. Like, she was a large girl.
Yeah.
Her whole life. Unfortunately, she left this earth, but he didn't tell me about her. And he said that he was so embarrassed in school that he wouldn't, when he went and left the school that they were going to together, when he moved to his new school, he never told anyone he had a sister.
Oh, that's sad.
Can you imagine how I can understand how it affected him, but can you imagine how it affected her?
It's not accepted.
Yeah.
Well, I believe that that's probably why we have the body positivity more than ever now. But I am scared also that we are encouraging 300 plus pounds, and that's going to shorten their lifespan even more. Well,
I'll finish that off because my sister-in-law ended up going to the doctor, and they say if you do not lose weight, it's lose weight or, sorry, die. Like, you have no choice here. You either lose the weight, the amount of strain on your body is too much. So she did get down to 180 pounds, which was great. But like I said,
Wow.
unfortunately, she did pass away, but she did lose weight and looked wonderful in the sense of healthy, wonderful. Do you understand? You know, and yeah, it was necessary. It was that, or, and it's the same thing with bulimia, right? Quit or, and I don't like to use it, quit or die, because that's a negative thing to say, but quit or be careful of the consequences. I would like to say it better than that way, because the consequences may not be that you end up not being here for your grandchildren. It could also be just something else that you just don't want to deal with. Like, it's not worth it. And I am blessed, and as you, we are both blessed that
Yes.
today, you know, I went and somebody said to me just quickly, you know, I did go to the doctor one time, and there was liver and kidney off. They were off, like not healthy, while I was bulimic. And just 6 months ago, I went to the doctor, clean bill of health. Everything's
Oh,
healed.
wonderful.
Because
Congratulations.
it can't heal itself. So let me ask you, Tammy, this, because you do this. What are your products? Please tell our listeners all about what you do, what you make, and we'd like to hear about that.
I make a product line called Aviv Spa. Excuse me. It's AVIV. It's Hebrew for springtime or new beginning. And we focus on making all natural Dead Sea hair, skin, and nail products that are cruelty-free, bioaccumulate free, GMO free, dairy free. You name it free, it's free. You know, we don't have parabens or formaldehydes or ureas or petroleum byproducts. The reason that I started these products for my own health, I got diagnosed with fibromyalgia in 1997. My daughter was 2. I was losing my hair and going bald from seborrheic psoriasis. Battled that with the doctors during my bulimia years, and I was only getting worse. I had lost all 10 fingernails to acrylic abuse. They were using an illegal primer that dissolved my nail beds that I knew nothing about it. I was going every week, getting my fill-ins and soaking off, and they were putting this stuff on it. And I found out later it was banned by the FDA in 1976. It's a product called MMA, and it helps that acrylic stick to the nail bed like rock, but it dissolves anything that comes in contact with it. And so over the course of time, my nail beds were completely dissolved and they would not grow back for 2 years. And I got nail fungus on all 10 toes, and they wanted to give me Lamisil, and I was a 25% chance it might work. And I had to go to the doctor, the hospital, and have my liver checked every 2 weeks because it damages your liver. And I left out of there saying, well, I think I'll just paint my toenails with I'm really not a waitress OPI color till they fall off, because I'm not going that route. Oh, and it was going to cost $350 a month, and my insurance wouldn't cover that for the pills. So it was like, here I am, a basket case. And I was like, okay, God, I got to the point of suicidal because I was so dysfunctional. Came out of being bulimic, and then I had all these other health problems. And so I was just like, okay, there's got to be some way that I can enjoy life, you know? And if I can't, this quality is, I couldn't get out of bed till noon from the drugs. And God showed me through learning and reading the Bible verse, Ezekiel 47:12. The latter part says the fruit for food and the leaves for healing. And I was like, what leaves, God? And he said, all of them, but you got to learn. And I didn't like to read back then. You hand me your card, I would ask you to tell me your name. I didn't want to read. And I was like, you're really asking me to read? Okay. Next thing you know, this craziness, I would start reading, and I'd absorb it, and I just bring it in. And we had dial-up internet with our computer business that my husband's owned since 1980. And I would start using dial-up internet to look up things about psoriasis and stuff. And I ran across medical documentation on the internet about the Dead Sea healing people of seborrheic psoriasis and helping with arthritis, and people going there for during the year to do sabbaticals to aid with their health and their well-being. And I'm like, okay, I live in Alabama. How am I going to get the Dead Sea to me, right? And doors began to open, and God it's been an amazing story, because I've been doing this 24 years now in January. But I started dreaming formulas when I started learning about herbs and oils and butters, and then the Dead Sea. And then I went over there and I started importing 40,000 pounds of the raw, pure ingredients, because there's a bunch of stuff that isn't real. It's tainted and it's ripped and stripped, and what looks like it isn't. And so I was like, I'm going over there to find a partner that will do what I want done with dredging the Dead Sea for the mud, for the salt, the clay, and the water. And I found him, and we've been partnered ever since about 2008. It was about 2006 when I started realizing what I was bringing in wasn't pure. And I was like, okay, I got to find an answer. And so, of course, like everybody else, I started in my kitchen. Now we've moved into we have a 3,000 square foot building office complex where I have my day spa. I've got my rooms. And then my house, we have a big house next door that houses we've reinforced all the floors, gutted the whole thing. It's an old antebellum home, built a loading dock and roll up doors so they can pick up pallets. But we're out in the weather, and we just started an ambassador program. And we have already signed up in the last 3 weeks, just doing a pre-launch, 39 ambassadors, because all of these people know about the purity of the product. They know about the journey. They know about the stories about each product, how it was made. We even make our own extracts here, buying certified organic herbs and then fusing them into the Dead Sea water for a year. And then we strain those like winemaking and put all those extracts into our products, because most extracts out on the market today are propylene or butylene glycol based, which is toxic to our bodies. And so God showed me this in '08. So every year we just cycle out whatever we need, and keep it going and keep it growing. And I healed, obviously, my hair. My fingernails are mine. I use a product called Dazzle Dry in my nail spa. That's safe for natural nails and can be removed with non-acetone polish remover and doesn't have to have a curing lamp or things along these lines. So I've always just looked for the natural way, because it's the best way. It takes a longer period of time, but the healing begins at the beginning stage. And when you begin to stay with it and stick with it and keep going and growing, eventually, this is all my hair. I don't have a hair clip. I used to wear hair clips. I had to, hair clips, wigs, you name it, extensions. I did it all, trying to help my poor hair, because it's always been so thin, and I called it straggly. I had to use I had to use all the stuff that they, for my hair, trying to get the scalp healed, and it was actually making it 5 times worse. My hair looked like, you could see straight through it. It was so icky.
Now, this is really interesting, because you had a line that you just talked about where it takes time, right?
Yes.
And it was, and I'm going to have to do this clip and send it to you, because it's almost exactly to what a recovering bulimic needs to go through. Because even when you stop eating and throwing up, there's still, like I said to you earlier, is coming out of that cocoon. And
yes,
that doesn't happen overnight. Learning to deal with the emotions that you ate, and you purge them. And I always said, like, particularly in anger, it was great. Like, hey, throw up my anger, and they're like, get out of here.
Yeah.
Like, it was like a ritual thing. It was not funny, but it's funny now thinking about it, but it's not funny back then. But that's what you're saying, even about your products. Same thing, right? It takes time. It takes, your hair has to heal, and your mind has to heal. And I love this. And where can they find this product? Because I do believe in the what you're talking about, the sea salt, right? Like Dead Sea, right? That's where it's from.
So there's a difference between the Dead Sea and regular sea salt. The Dead Sea is actually 10 times higher in the mineral content.
Yes.
An ocean is 3% minerals. The Dead Sea is over 30% minerals. But when you go and you buy Dead Sea salt, a lot of these companies don't know the difference. And until you go over there and you actually get to be at the Dead Sea and talk to people there, what they do in Israel and in Jordan is they mine the Dead Sea for those minerals to make fertilizer. And then they sell it, and it's over $1 trillion a year industry in both countries. So when they mine the salt, they pull all those minerals out, but what's left is still Dead Sea salt. And so the way that you can tell the difference if what you've got is the ripped and stripped is what I've coined the phrase, or pure semi-dry. Semi-dry salts are wet. They draw moisture to themselves, which that's why it helps fight aging, because the moisture is always, when minerals are on your skin from the Dead Sea, all day long, it's keeping you hydrated. So it minimizes the fine lines and the wrinkles over the course of your celebrating more birthdays. And so when you get Dead Sea salt from other companies, they're going to be literally like this paper white. Yeah, like Morton salt looks, white as a ghost. When it's the real deal and you've dredged it up out of the Dead Sea, it's ivory. It's not white. And so you can tell the difference. And when you hold our product up to a competitor's, it's day and night. And when you bathe, it's day and night.
So here's what I'm asking. Where can we find you?
Oh, avivspa.com, avivspa.com. That's our website. We've just rebranded. We had our line was called Aviv Wellness Ceuticals, and we had our Aviv CBD oil with the Dead Sea on there. My day spa, I do Dead Sea and CBD facials that are literally looking like I've done laser surgery on you, and you can walk out the door and go to the beach with no cap.
So why is it so far away from me? I mean,
I ship to Canada. We ship to Canada.
Canada.
One of the ladies that's in my mastermind, Kathy Marenzi, she's up there with you guys. I don't know exactly where at, but we've shipped our Dead Sea products up there to her. She has it's called Weight Loss God's Way. And she was, I'm good. I just want to talk to you about your CBD. Well, I can't ship CBD to Canada, but I can ship my Dead Sea products up there. So.
Yeah, definitely. And I highly recommend that people look into that because I believe in that. And so I've had some products, not yours, but I can definitely tell you that it's been definitely, you can tell a difference from the regulars.
It's a game changer. I'm actually working right now because of my ambassador program. They've asked me so many questions. So I've actually been doing my due diligence on my competitors in the Dead Sea industry. And I haven't found one that compares to our products. Every one of them have carcinogens, toxic ingredients. They have endocrine disruptors in them. And there's new words for the old names. So it's even more dangerous now than ever, because especially women of childbearing years, I had 5 miscarriages. I had no idea. And this was, I had 1 before my daughter and then 4 after my daughter. And, up until, my last one was only 5 years ago at age 53, blew the doctor's mind, blew our minds too. But I have progesterone deficiency, and I thought I was in menopause, and it turned out I was actually pregnant. And it was 9 weeks, and at 8, usually I lost the baby. And so it was, we had the thing scheduled, and I lost the baby 2 days before I went back to the doctor. So, but these are things that they add up in our bodies, and women do not know what they're doing to themselves in the name of beauty. I have 2 licenses in the beauty industry. I wrote a weekly article called Great Beauty Tips for 15 years here locally, every single week, helping them understand about the differences in fragrances. Fragrances are full of phthalates, and phthalates are killers. And it's not on the label. There's 4,000 chemicals that make a fragrance. So if you want to go with something that smells good, use essential oils and go out and buy a book on blending oils. And that's what I had to do, because God told me, you're treating your body like a shack out back, not like the temple I gave to you for me to reside in with you. And you've got to wake up, or you are going to die from all of this. because I was selling candles. I had, you name it, plug-ins, oils everywhere, burning 50 candles. My husband got asthma because of my addiction to candles. I mean, it was crazy. And I was addicted to all of it. And so coming out, I mean, I have addictive personality, obviously, for things that aren't good. Now I'm addicted to things that are.
Addicted to good stuff.
Yes. Now I'm addicted to trying to, well, we'll find a better way, you know, but when I'm looking at my competitors, I'm like, why are they doing this?
Yeah.
Why are they doing this?
Well, this
It's crazy.
is absolutely wonderful. And really thank you for sharing. I really appreciate your time. Really appreciate you reaching out, and really appreciate bringing some tears to my eyes, because I think that your story is wonderful. And yes, and all of these links, by the way, for listeners, are going to be in the notes. And again, thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And my biggest prayer is that future moms and dads that are listening, this will help them save their children, because we don't want to lose grandbabies.
No, we don't.
No. Thank you so much. I appreciate you asking me to be here.
Thank you, and thank you for being here.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Be sure to visit me at bleepbulimia.com.